This is Extra Paycheck Podcast, episode number 102.
You're listening to Extra Paycheck Podcast, where you will learn how to build and grow your own successful online business. Now, here's your host, Alex Soul.
Welcome to yet another episode of the Extra Paycheck Podcast. This is episode number 102, and today's special guest is Josh Hoffman. Josh is a digital marketing consultant, and he helps brands all over the world to leverage the internet to maximize exposure, attract more customers, and increase their lifetime value. A really great episode is ahead of you, so enjoy today's show. Hi, Josh, and welcome to the Extra Paycheck Podcast.
Hey, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Josh, please tell us a little bit more about yourself and what is that you do as a business right now.
Sure. So right now I am an international digital marketing consultant, strategist, and instructor. And I specialize specifically in social media and content marketing. So I'm working with different brands and organizations around the world to help them use both content marketing and social media to attract new customers, to gain exposure, and to increase the lifetime customer value of their existing customers. And I also run a website called Epic Freelancing, epicfreelancing.com, which is essentially an online education platform that helps freelancers build successful businesses.
Mm-hmm. That sounds great. And I'd like to ask you to elaborate a little bit on that second part where you said you teach freelancers. And is it freelancers of any sort, or is it freelancers that are actually in the same space as you, meaning social media and content marketing?
Good question. So it's freelancers of any sort, particularly freelancers that have a creative skill. So graphic designers, photographers, writers, bloggers, but really anyone who sells a service. I work with them not to improve their creative skill, but instead to really act like a business, because as I'm sure you know, Alex, a lot of freelancers, whether they know it or not, do not really have business acumen. They don't really know what it means to run a business and to be successful, and to leverage different principles that are the difference in being successful and being in business for a long time, and getting better clients and controlling your hours and your workflow and all those great things, versus freelancers who struggle to get new clients, who struggle to raise their prices, who struggle to get exposure, who struggle to get bigger and better clients with, greater budgets, and ultimately who, when people go into freelancing, we do it for the freedom, right? We do it for the control, to not only control our destiny, but to really control our time, to control when we work, how we work, why we work, with whom we work. And yet far too many freelancers are not really in control of their own business because they haven't taken control by doing things like proactively marketing themselves, personal branding, and a lot of other different tactics. And so I help them through Epic Freelancing to do those sort of things in a way that achieves their personal goals and allows them to get to where they want to be.
Mm-hmm. That sounds fair and interesting. And Josh, as far as I know, the most freelancers that I've actually had to work with, it's people that don't really build a brand or any kind of online presence except on, the websites like freelancer.com or Upwork. And that's kind of one of my points is that a lot of these freelancers, they concentrate on those networks because that it's a marketplace where buyers are already coming. So they concentrate on that. And do you think that this alone would be enough for a freelancer to get, eventually build up a good portfolio of contracts and income? Or should they really build their own brand outside of those platforms?
So the answer to your question is to build your own platform, to build your own brand, to build a presence independent of these online marketplaces for freelancers. Because one of the core things I just talked about a few minutes ago, Alex, is the idea of business acumen, of really understanding basic principles, fundamental principles that will allow you to be successful. And one of the core principles that I talk about all the time is the economic principle of supply and demand. And so when you look at these freelance marketplaces, like you mentioned, Freelancer or Upwork or any of the other ones, if you look at the supply and demand that is currently existing on these platforms, you have high supply of freelancers looking for work and relatively low demand for people who are looking for projects to be done by these freelancers. And so if you know anything about basic supply and demand, you know that when supply is high and demand is relatively low, prices go down. And so it's no wonder that when you look at these websites and these platforms, that the average freelancer is not making a lot of money, whether it's per hour, per project, or whatever the working relationship may be. And so that's why it's so important to really flip the switch, and instead of having a situation where there's high supply and low demand, to create a situation where you have high demand for your services and therefore low supply of your available time. And when you're able to accomplish that sort of dynamic, Alex, that's when you can raise your prices and continuously raise them because people want to work with you. And as a result, you have less and less time to offer to new clients, which means you can charge more. And the best way to do that is, again, through proactively marketing yourself and building a personal brand, or as you said just a few minutes ago, building your own digital presence, not relying on these third-party platforms to get work and to ultimately build your business. Because frankly, there are exceptions to the rule, no question about it, but the vast majority of freelancers who are using these platforms are not successful in the long run.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense, actually. And I think it goes not to only freelancers, but it goes to pretty much anyone doing any sort of business online. It's always a great idea to build up your own personal brand. And when I was starting with online marketing back in 2007, 2008, a lot of people used platforms like, Easy Articles and Squidoo and all these platforms where you just submit your content and you would either get backlinks or you would put in your affiliate links directly in the content, whatever the case might be, right? And a lot of people spend like hundreds, if not thousands of hours creating content for these platforms instead of creating content for their own, let's say, websites and blogs, right? And just a few years later, meaning 2009, I guess 2010, maybe earlier even, I don't exactly remember the timeline, Google decided that they really didn't like those platforms anymore because, well, the access was so easy that so many people just spammed them. And all of these platforms got deranked. They weren't like visible anywhere in the search engines. And all these people, including me, who spent hundreds of hours creating content, all of a sudden we had no more clicks, we had no more visitors, and we had no money coming in because, we gave all of our best to these platforms that we did not control at all.
To be honest with you, I'm not surprised because you're putting your eggs in somebody else's basket and you're relinquishing control of the situation, whether it's, working on these online marketplaces or working with these kind of, softwares and platforms that allow you to try to quote unquote game the system. It's one of those things where, Alex, and I know you know this, but when you try to take shortcuts, yeah, maybe in the short term, it'll work, right? It'll be a quick fix.
Yeah.
But if you're thinking long term, which is what most true business people and entrepreneurs think, if you're thinking long term, then you just have to do it right. And you have to build that proper foundation so that when things get shaky, the foundation doesn't break. The foundation stays strong and you're able to build upon that foundation to increase the chances of your success. So if we're talking about freelancing or digital marketing or any other form of online business, you have to just do things the right way and do things one step at a time and not try to take shortcuts. There's a great saying by one of my icons. His name is John Wooden. He's probably the greatest college basketball coach ever. And he says, if you're so busy thinking about the tricks to the trade, you'll never learn the trade. And I think that's so fitting because so many people are worried about the latest hacks, the latest tricks, the latest shortcuts, instead of just worrying about how can I get better at my trade? How can I get better at my craft? How can I make my customers happier? How can I improve what I'm already good at? And once you start thinking in that sort of way, I think almost instantly you'll see profound success both in the short and long term.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Great quote, and I totally agree with you. And let's say in my space, a lot of beginners are guilty of looking for tricks and shortcuts because, let's be honest, when you see successful people and you've kind of tried to do something and it's not working out, and you're somewhat of a beginner, you might think that there is a secret that they know. There's a trick that they're using that you're not aware of. So you go looking for the trick, and this is where you end up, as you mentioned, wasting your time and effort into, looking for something that doesn't really exist instead of working on your business harder and actually seeing success from your work.
And the other thing that I like to talk about too is finding mentors and reaching out to people. It's never been history. It's never been easier in the history of basically ever to reach out to people directly and say, "Hey, I admire what you do. I want to be in your shoes one day. Can we talk? Can I shoot you an email with some questions?" With social media, whether it's Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or people's websites, don't be afraid to reach out to people and tell them that not only are you a fan of them and of their work, but that you aspire to be like them. People take that as a compliment, and most people are willing to help. Maybe they can't give you tons of time, and they're certainly probably not going to give you any money, but they will answer your questions, and they will, maybe give you a few minutes so that you can look for whatever you're trying to look for in order to improve yourself. So I would always encourage people, whether it's a formal mentorship or it's just a one-off type of email exchange, don't be afraid to reach out to people who you want to ultimately mimic at some point in your career, whether it's today or in the future.
Great advice, Josh. And I think this is one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast, to surround myself with kind of people who are succeeding and people who have achieved something that I want to achieve and so on. So yeah, that's reaching out to people you admire is a great idea. And as you mentioned, it has never been as easy as it is now.
Yes, sir.
Josh, I want to go back to your own business, back to your own specialty and your expertise. How did you stumble upon that industry, and what made you decide that you want to become, a digital marketing consultant, concentrating on social media, on content? Like what gave you that idea, and what gave you that push to get you in that field?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was studying journalism at San Diego State University in San Diego, California, and I actually originally wanted to be a sports journalist. I love storytelling. I love writing. I love talking about different, interesting topics. I did radio. I did TV. I did print, digital, all those different things within journalism. And, as I started to learn more about the industry of the media in general, I started to not like it as much. It's one of those things, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, where from the outside looking in, it looks like a sexy, shiny object. But once you're inside and you actually see what's really inside, it's not so sexy anymore. And so I had these great skills of storytelling and of creating content, because that's essentially what journalism is. And I thought, well, if I can go and write great content for a newspaper or a magazine or a website or for the radio or TV, why can't I do that for businesses, for brands, for different organizations who now need content now more than ever for their digital platforms, their website, their blog, their social media channels. And to me, it was just a natural fit and kind of an easy transition, because I already had these great storytelling and content skills. And so from there, I just started working with local Los Angeles businesses to help them execute social media programs, digital marketing programs, and strategies. And, one thing led to the next. I grew. I got bigger and better clients. And I started working with clients outside of the U.S., not just inside of the U.S., and it's been really a nice, fun ride over the last almost 5 years now.
Wow, that's really awesome. And Josh, is that your main source of income right now? Your consulting business and your website for freelancers?
Yeah, so my consulting business is my primary source of income, and then Epic Freelancing is right now my secondary source of income.
Okay, that's really awesome. And since a lot of people ask, actually one of the most asked questions when it comes to starting your own business, especially online, how long does it take to make money? And I know there is no specific answer for everyone, but in your specific case, for you, how long did it take you to get to a level of income when you thought, that's good enough for me to not need to have a job or something, that I could actually live off of that and grow it from now on?
For me, it was about 6 months of decent income that I could definitely live off of and support myself. And then good income, I would say it took me about a year, if I remember correctly. But I will say something, Alex. I tried everything on my own. I was stubborn, and I tried to reach out to people in the beginning, and I tried to network. And actually, my grandfather, who was a very successful entrepreneur in his heyday, he was one of my kind of mentors in the beginning, the early stages of my freelance business. But by and large, I really was just doing whatever I could do within my knowledge and a little research and talking to a few people. But if I knew then what I know now, which is the importance of mentors and the importance of proactively marketing yourself and not just relying on word of mouth and building a personal brand, I truly believe in my heart of hearts that instead of, that 6-month period of getting to decent income and then maybe around a year of getting to good income, I could have cut both of those timelines in half. I really, really believe that. The reason I didn't do that is because I didn't know. I was so new, and I think most people are like that. Either it's an ego thing, which it kind of was with me, where it's like, I don't really need that much help, so I can probably figure this stuff out on my own. Or some people are just like shy, right? Like they're introverts and they're like, hesitant to reach out to people, and they're just trying to kind of like, tippy toe their way to the finish line. Either way, like I said before, it's so important to surround yourself with people who have been there and done that. And now that I realize that, and I've taken advantage of different resources and opportunities and people that I've met along the way, to me, it's one of those things where I don't regret what I did, but if I'm giving advice to other people who are thinking about starting a business, it's to really, again, surround yourself with the right people. Don't be afraid to reach out, and really understand that it's okay to not know everything, and be an open book and let people help you and show you the way.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing that, Josh. And since you mentioned that you believe that you need to proactively market yourself and, push your business as much as you can, maybe you could share some ideas with the listeners of like which marketing strategies have you used the most successfully to get the word out about your own business?
So for me, it's one of those things where, be your own client, right? What does that mean? It means that I'm a social media and content marketing specialist. So if I'm a social media and content marketing specialist, meaning I help other businesses use those two mediums to attract both new customers, but also retain and maximize the lifetime value of existing customers, then I should be doing that for my own business. If I'm so good at it, then I should be doing that for my own business. And so for me, it's social media and content marketing, primarily LinkedIn, because that's the best B2B network out there. And then in terms of content marketing, I'm using a lot of email marketing, a lot of funnels, a lot of automation. And so I say that because not everyone is going to be, good at what I'm good at, which is social media and content marketing. But maybe you're good at photography. Maybe you're good at video. Maybe you're good at graphic design. And so whatever you're good at, use those tools and those mediums to promote yourself. And so, for instance, if you're good at photography, Alex, well, boom, Instagram, Snapchat. If you're good at video, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Use your already existing skills to build your own business in terms of marketing and in terms of building your personal brand. That's the easiest way to do it. And not only is it good to promote yourself and to attract new clients, but it also shows these potential clients that you're trying to attract that, hey, I'm not just telling you that you should be using the services that I provide, but I'm also using these services for my own business to promote and to grow my own business. And that just lends a lot more credence and credibility to what you're selling.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Josh, and thanks for sharing that, because this is something that a lot of people are struggling with as well, and I think there is an important lesson in that, and there is a reason why they're struggling. I'll give you an example. I often see people posting on different Facebook groups and forums a question like, I see that search engine optimization, SEO, is a very profitable business. What would be your suggestion, like, for me to get my first clients? And it's people that don't really know what SEO is. They just think that, okay, there's money in it, so that's what I should be doing online. And I typically reply to those people who's like, well, build a website on whatever subject and rank it at the very top of the Google search results. That's That's the only thing you need to do to get your first client. So then you tell people, look, I did my own SEO for this website and it's ranking for these terms. So I obviously know what I'm doing and I'm good at it. If you want to sell your service as, once again, SEO specialist and you can't even rank your own website, then maybe you're doing something wrong there.
Correct. And I think it's just a matter of people, it's easy to talk the talk, but it's harder to walk the walk. We know that. We know that in every walk of life, and even you and I know that in a lot of different ways. So, as you said, if you believe in yourself and you're quote unquote so good at what you do, which is what a lot of people think, and for good reason, then use yourself as your first client, especially when you're starting a business, right? It's like everyone wants that first client because that's the hardest client to get. Once you get over that first bump, it becomes easier and easier. Well, you actually already have your first client. Your first client is yourself. And if you treat yourself as your first client, then your second client will be that much easier to get.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Josh, what is your opinion on passion versus money in the sense of, do you think it's better to start a business, especially online business, in a niche that interests you or, in an industry that you're really passionate about? Or should you ditch all of that passion talk and just go for the industry that is like super profitable?
I believe in self-awareness. And to me, self-awareness is 4 main things. It's what you like doing, your passions, what you're good at, your strengths, what you're not so good at, your weaknesses, and what you don't like, your pains, things that don't make you feel so good. And a lot of people will say, take that combination, improve upon your weaknesses, get better at the things that you don't really like, learn to like them, and of course, take advantage of your strengths and your passions. What I tell people is forget your weaknesses and forget the things you don't like, forget your pains. Put those to the side and totally ignore them. And double down on your strengths and your passions. And whatever that combination is what eventually, if you put in the work and you do things the right way, that will be your successful business, that combination. So I think, to answer your question, that you should definitely be passionate about what you're doing. You don't have to be the most passionate about it, but you should definitely have a fundamental level of passion in whatever you're doing. That combined, like I said, with whatever it is you're good at, whatever your strengths are.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Josh, how do you find that one thing you're good at?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it, Alex?
It is.
A lot of it's trial and error. Just to be honest with you, I can't give you and your audience that one great, sexy, shiny answer that's going to go and change everyone's life, as much as everyone would like me to, and as much as I would like myself to be able to give that answer. I don't have it, but what I can tell you is that you just have to try, and you have to keep trying. There's a great quote by Seth Godin, who I'm sure you know and many of your audience members know. Mm-hmm. He says, the person that fails the most wins, which means the person that keeps trying and trying and trying and trying ultimately will find that one thing that is at the intersection of your strengths and your passions. And you just have to keep trying. And you might not find it on your first attempt or your second attempt or your 10th attempt, but you will find it because it's just process by elimination. So what I would just tell people is if you haven't started, start yesterday. And if you have started, keep going. And of course, there's going to be bumps in the road. And of course, there's going to be times where you question why you're doing what you're doing. That's natural. We all feel that. You feel that. I felt that. I'll feel that a million more times, I'm sure. But you just have to keep going. And you have to look at every new opportunity as a fresh one. Don't hold grudges. Don't become jaded. Learn from your mistakes and keep going. Keep moving forward.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Totally agree with you. And I've had quite a few podcast guests that told me that it took them, some of them it took 5 years, some of them it took even 10 years to figure out what was that thing that they were really good at. And in most cases, that thing was right in front of them the whole time. They just failed to see it because, they chased something else. They chased the money or they chased something else for whatever reason. But they always came back to this one thing. And eventually they're like, oh my God, this is what I've been good at all this time. And I just wasted all these years. But, at least in the end, they came to realize that that's what they need to be doing.
Absolutely. And I think, for myself, Alex, I can tell you that when I first started my digital marketing business, I wanted to be everything to every client. I wanted to do video and graphic design and photography and, social media and content marketing and everything under the sun. I mean, that under the digital marketing sun.
Yeah.
And then as I started going and doing and trying to sell all these different services, I realized I don't like most of them, or I'm not good at most of them. So eventually, after a lot of trial and error and a lot of what you would call quote unquote failures, I realized I'm good and I enjoy social media and content marketing, consulting, and strategy. And that intersection has allowed me to flourish and to charge way more than most people charge, and to work with clients that most people would dream of. And I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. I'm just saying because I was able to finally be self-aware and to double down on my strengths and my passions, I'm here where I am today as a result. Nothing more and nothing less. Not because I'm smarter, not because I have more experience, not because I'm more motivated, not because I sleep more than you, not because I have a morning routine, not for any other reason other than I understood finally what it means to be self-aware.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Alex, most people wish they were somebody or something that they're not.
Yeah.
And I think you and I'm sure, can relate to that, and have maybe been in that position before. Be real with yourself. Be honest with yourself. It's okay to not be what you may or may not want to be. Because even though you're not something that you want to be, what you are is still special and unique and worthy of building a successful business.
That's true. And, to be honest with you, I think most of us have been in that place where we weren't sure of ourselves, of course. And I think sometimes it's really, really hard to kind of come over that and be, kind of come in peace in a way, to be like, it's okay to not be that person that I want to, project. And I'd rather be myself, but I just have to figure out like my best self and be that. And yeah, for sure, man, it's hard to do that sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Josh. So I guess at this point, I want to move a little bit to your expertise, to social media. And maybe you could share with us, what is that maybe one thing or a few biggest mistakes that some of your clients are making when it comes to social media marketing before, of course, they hire you or another expert? What have you seen like as a recurring biggest mistake that people do in social media marketing?
That's a great question. I love talking about this because I talk about it a lot. I talk about it a lot because so many people are doing it. People are so focused on their product or service. When I say people, I mean business people, marketers, salespeople, business owners. They're so in love with their product or their service, and for good reason. It's their baby. They've put so much time and effort and money and resources into it. I totally get that. But what you have to remember is that nobody loves your product or service as much as you. And it doesn't matter how much you post about it on social media and how many emails you send out about it and how many ads you place about it. No one will ever love your product or service like you. And once you can understand that, and once you can actually understand why people buy products and services, they don't buy products and services because of the actual product or service in most cases. They buy products and services because of what those products and services represent. So, for instance, I'll give you a very easy example. A hotel. Most cases, people go to hotels not because they're going to hang out at the hotel all day. They're looking for a comfortable place to stay in the city that they're traveling to. And so if I was every hotel out there, I would stop putting photos and videos and all sorts of nonsense about your hotel rooms and your great restaurant at your hotel and all the other amenities and features that you offer. Put that on your website, of course. But talk about why people are actually coming to your city. It's not to stay at your hotel and to be at your hotel 24/7. It's to enjoy what the city in which your hotel resides has to offer, whether it's for business reasons, leisure reasons, travel reasons, and make it about the experience of traveling and less about your actual product or service. And once you can find that story of whatever it is your product or service represents, that's when you're going to start to get people's attention. That's when you're going to start to see sales go up. And that's when you're going to start to maximize customer lifetime value.
Interesting. So, Josh, are you telling me that we shouldn't be just salespeople? We should actually connect with people?
Believe it or not, I know it's a very foreign concept, but that's basically the crux of it.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And well, I guess let's move on once again through your business. And you said that you are a social media marketing expert as well as content marketing expert. Now, maybe you could share the difference between the two with the listeners, because to me, content marketing means really a lot of different things. And part of it is, well, marketing your content through social media. Another part is marketing not through social media, but doing other kinds of promotion for your content. Let's say the content that's on your blog or whatever other platform, your YouTube channel. So what would you describe as this difference between, let's say, social media marketing and content marketing? And
So content marketing is basically the entire internet, because everything on the internet is content. And if you're using the internet to promote your business, you're doing marketing or advertising, but they're basically one and the same. And so that's kind of the umbrella approach is content marketing. Under content marketing, you have social media marketing, email marketing, blogging, your website, different advertising channels like Google AdWords. All of that falls under content marketing. Marketing really, if we actually probably should take a step back and understand what marketing is. Because marketing, digital marketing, content marketing, social media marketing, it all starts with marketing. And marketing, at least my definition of marketing, is the process of creating value and staying relevant in the minds of your target audience until they are willing, able, and ready to buy what you're selling. Willing means that they trust you. Able means that they have the financial means and other means, logistical means, for instance. And ready is that the time is right for them. It's your job to create value and to stay relevant in these people's lives until, again, they are willing, able, and ready to buy what you're selling. So now that we understand that general definition of marketing, you can say, okay, how do you achieve that definition with content? How do you achieve that definition with social media, with email, with Google AdWords, with affiliate marketing, with all the other different types of marketing that you can do on the internet? And so if we're talking specifically about content marketing and social media marketing, well, like I said before, content marketing basically spans the entire internet in terms of whatever it is you want to do. And then social media marketing is one of those channels that you can connect with people, have that two-way conversation like you kind of alluded to before. And it's also great for like community management. So you're building a community of people, and then you're feeding them things that they can talk about, that they can enjoy, like any community, online or offline. So social media, I would say, is more tactical, and maybe content marketing is more high-level theoretical. But they're almost one and the same, because social media marketing is a version of content marketing, and content marketing is very effectively done through social media marketing. So in a lot of ways, they're kind of the same thing, but I guess social media marketing is a very specific thing, whereas content marketing can span essentially, like I said, all of the internet.
I agree with you. It's a lot more general, and as you said, pretty much everything we do online could potentially fall under the content marketing umbrella. Josh, another question for you, going back to social media. It's a hard one, I guess, for different companies, but maybe you have a suggestion on how a small business or someone who's doing marketing for themselves, they're just starting out, what is the best way for them to figure out which platform, social media platform, they should put the most effort into to promote their own business? Because, for every business, it will be a different answer. But what can we do to kind of figure out which one is the best in our case?
Actually, it's quite simple. Ask your customers what channels they use. Literally, just ask them. Do they use email? Do they use Facebook? Do they use LinkedIn? Do they use Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, YouTube, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Don't guess, because sometimes you're not your own customer, and that's okay. But in order to really understand what channels these people are using, just ask them. Or if you don't have a business yet and you're not really sure who your customer is, well, then that's really what you should be focusing on. It's not what channels to use, but who's your customer? What are their demographics? What are their geographics? What are their psychographics? What are their behaviors? Et cetera, et cetera. And really hone in on who your specific customer is, or type of customers. Sometimes you have multiple types of customers. Some people call that a buyer persona. I don't really like that term personally, but that's kind of a buzzword out there. But really focus on who your customer is, and then once you know who it is, go out and seek them, not just to sell them something, but to ultimately understand, how do you get your content? Is it TV? Is it radio? Is it magazines and newspapers? Is it brochures? I mean, there's so many different channels and platforms, both online and offline. The easiest way, like I said, just ask them. Just ask.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And Josh, do you believe that we should be everywhere on every possible social media platform, or should we actually concentrate only on those where our customers are hanging out? Once again, since you mentioned we ask them, and we see that most of our customers are on Facebook and Instagram, and all of them love email. So should we just concentrate on these three, or should we still try to be everywhere? It's in Twitter, Pinterest, and pretty much everywhere else.
It's kind of like saying, I don't know, should I go to every conference if, to find my customers, or should I only go to the conferences and the conventions that I know my customers are going to be at? Of course, the answer is only go to the conventions and the conferences that your customers are going to be at. So the same thing would apply to social media and any other platform, channel, community, etc. It's spend time where your customers spend time, and everything else is just noise and nonsense.
Great advice. Great advice. And I think we should all have an account for our business on all of the platforms. But yeah, I guess, it would only make sense to spend most of your effort promoting and being active on the ones where your customers are.
Correct.
All right, Josh, I have another question for you, and this one could be tricky. Maybe not. I have no clue in your case. Have you had a really, really dark moment since starting your business, or thinking of starting this business, where you thought that it's not working out, it's really, really hard, you're not seeing the progress that you were hoping for, to the point where you thought, I'm not gonna do that probably. I should just get a job and live quote unquote safely. Have you had this really hard moment where you wanted to quit entrepreneurship in general and just do nothing or get a job?
I have. Basically what happened was, a few years ago, I had the best year, the most successful year of my business, and I think it was my third year, if I remember correctly. It was my third year in business, and things just skyrocketed. I was having all types of great success, tons of great new clients, bigger budgets, all different types of opportunities, speaking opportunities. That was the year that I started Epic Freelancing. So things were just going really, really, really great. I was making a lot of money, and that sort of thing. And once I started to make a lot of money, or a lot more money than I was making before, I thought, all right, now I need to grow. I need to bring on people to help me service my clients. I need to maybe get an office, or an office at a co-working space. I need to maybe reinvest in different types of infrastructure and marketing and advertising. And I got really excited, and I started doing things really, really fast, hiring people and getting an office and reinvesting in advertising and marketing and all these different types of opportunities, instead of really slowing down and taking one thing at a time and being very diligent about how I was going to reinvest in my business. Well, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, because it was a great learning lesson, I went so fast because I was really trying to run a sprint instead of a marathon, that everything just crashed. I mean, everything just literally, Alex, went up in flames. Lost a bunch of clients. The person that was working for me full time quit. I all of a sudden went from making a lot of money to not so much money, and yet I had all these new expenses. Even my personal life took a hit. My relationship with my girlfriend at the time, we were living together. We had been together for about a year and a half. That went down the drain. And I was legitimately depressed. I mean, legitimately depressed. Woke up, didn't want to do anything all day. Often I would even just like sleep most of the day. It was such a roller coaster of going from such a high to such a low in such a short amount of time. I didn't really know how to process it and deal with it. And so after I think it was about 2 months of a legit depression, I started to pick myself up again and realized that, okay, I made a mistake. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of my business. But it was a big setback. I learned a lot, mainly, like I said, to really try to run a marathon and not just a sprint. Don't only go for those quick, easy wins, but really think long term and how are things going to develop and how you should, if you're reinvesting, for instance, or if you're hiring people, really take your time. Really think through these different things so that you're doing it the right way. And like I said before, you're building that foundation that will stay steady even as things get hard in the future. And so, I don't regret it. Because it was a great learning lesson. I think I'm much better for it today than I would be if it didn't happen to me. But it was definitely a very hard time. There's no question about it.
Thanks for sharing that, Josh. That's a pretty scary story. And I'm glad you shared it, because a lot of beginners, especially to entrepreneurship, all they see usually is our wins and our success, and they think it's all beautiful and rosy and smells good in that world.
Right.
But it isn't true. I think most, if not all, entrepreneurs have to or had to overcome some really, really dark days and really, really hard moments that, could have ruined some other people completely.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, like you said, most entrepreneurs, if not all entrepreneurs, have at least one, if not a few, maybe even many stories. And of course, I have many stories. That was kind of the biggest one that was maybe the most outlandish. But, there's also just on a day-to-day basis, sometimes you have a hard day, you have a hard week, you have a hard month. And I've had many of those, and I'm sure I will have many more. But once you realize that, again, you're running a marathon and not a sprint, then you learn to not get so consumed when you have that bad day or that bad week or that bad month, because you understand that, it's like that saying, this too shall pass. And so again, as long as you're doing things the right way,
yeah,
and you're building that foundation and you're strengthening that foundation even after you've built it, that will allow you to get through these periods of lowly times, depression, bad investments, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, totally. All right, Josh, once again, thanks for sharing that personal story. And once again, it was a pretty hardcore one. And that would be the last question before you go. What would be your biggest advice? The most important thing that beginner entrepreneurs should pay attention to when starting or thinking of starting their own business?
I would say the most freelancers and the most entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, most of them fail not because they don't have skills or not because they lack experience. I think most of them fail because they have a plan B. They don't totally commit to whatever it is they want to do. Maybe they commit 90% or 95% or 80% or whatever, but they don't commit 100%. I always tell people that if you have a plan B, you give yourself the option to fail. And I'm going to say that one more time so people really understand. If you have a plan B, you give yourself the option to fail. And what I mean by that, Alex, is that it's human psychology that when things get tough, when things get uncomfortable, we always want to gravitate toward the things that are more comfortable. And so as you start your business and you build your business, whatever it may be, it will get tough. It's inevitable. There's nothing you can do. You cannot prepare for it. There will always be a time where it's going to get tough. Maybe it's 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, 6 years down the line. I don't know. But if you have a plan B, when things start getting tough with your plan A, automatically your brain is going to revert to that plan B because that plan B is easier. It's the easy route. It's hard to get through the tough times of the plan A. It's easy to say, you know what, maybe the plan A is not good for me anymore. It got too hard, a little bit too challenging. Don't really want to put in all this effort. So I'm just going to go and maybe check out that plan B because that plan B has been in your head this whole time.
Yeah.
But Alex, if you don't have a plan B to begin with and you only have your plan A, now we're just talking about survival instincts. Now you know that this is your only plan. And once that plan gets a little tough, you just got to push through. And you will push through because it's your only plan. And because you have to survive. We all have those innate survival instincts. And if you trust yourself and you believe in yourself, and as I said before, you do things the right way, you will get through the tough times and you will become better because of the tough times. Just like I did when I had that horrible up and down and then depression and all that kind of stuff. I'm a million times better for that situation. Across the board.
Yeah.
But it was because I didn't have a plan B. I could have easily, like you said, gone and maybe looked for a job or thought about starting another business or could have done a million things. But I stuck with my plan A, my original plan that I was 100% committed to. And now I'm here today, a million times better, a million times more experienced, stronger mentally. And I know that when I'm in that situation again in the future, I will have a much better idea of how I should approach it and ultimately how to get through it. And so, just to sum it up again, if you have a plan B, you give yourself the option to fail.
Yeah, totally agree with you, Josh. Thank you for sharing that great advice. And I've actually never thought of it this way. But yeah, that one phrase is eye-opening. Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And Josh, for people who want to find out more about you or about your business, maybe who want to work with you, where should they go?
So for my digital marketing consulting and anything related to my consulting business, you can check out my website, joshhoffman.com, JOSHOFFMAN.com. And for my freelancing platform, Epic Freelancing, you can head over to epicfreelancing.com. You can also contact me through that website. Either way, check me out. I love to continue the conversation. I do a lot of these podcast interviews, so it's great to hear from people who are listening and continue that conversation, whether it's on LinkedIn or email or Twitter. So by all means, don't hesitate to reach out to me if you're interested in talking and learning more, and maybe if you have some additional questions, happy to answer them. And like I said, what we talked about, Alex, kind of at the beginning of the podcast is don't be afraid to reach out, right?
Yeah.
And so again, don't be afraid to reach out, whether it's to me, whether it's to other people who, you want to get in contact with, who you want to aspire to be, whatever it may be. Don't be afraid to reach out. So, and Alex, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I really enjoyed this last hour of a great, really intriguing conversation, and I appreciate your time.
All right, Josh. Thanks so much for sharing your story. Thanks so much for sharing your experiences, your tips, and yeah, thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate that.
Likewise. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. As always, head over to extrapodcast.com/102. This is where I'll be posting show notes page for today's episode, and this is where you'll be able to find links and other resources mentioned in today's episode. Also, head over to extrapodcast.com/iTunes in order to subscribe to the show. If you haven't already, please do leave a rating and a review, which will help the show tremendously. Thank you so much once again for listening, and I'll talk to you next Monday.